This computer. Okay. All right, good afternoon. So today's topic is the 5 parity condition in international finance. The textbook topic is a little bit different, but I like this system. We have 5 major equilibrium condition or parity condition in international finance. The textbook does not cover the second one, Fisher effect, and 5, the forward rate as unbiased future rate, but we will do the complete 5 conditions, okay? So these 5 parity conditions include, first, purchasing power parity. That is related to the inflation. And then the Fisher effect, that is about the interest rate and real interest rate. And then 3, international Fisher effect. This is about the exchange rate and the interest rate. Okay, interest rate parity, we did this one in chapter 7, but I think interest rate parity, the right place for this one is here in this chapter. So I put it in here. And 5th, forward rate as an unbiased estimator of future spot rate. So that's the last one. So these 5 complete the system, equilibrium system in international finance. You'll see that. You'll see what I mean there. Okay. The first one is purchasing power parity. Okay. The key idea is a foreign currency with high relative inflation would depreciate during the next period, or a foreign currency with low relative inflation would appreciate in the next period. That is the key idea, or that's the complete idea. The second one is the kind of the short relative form. The percentage change in exchange rate is equal to, or roughly equal to, relative inflation or inflation differential between the 2 countries, US and foreign. The relative inflation, we talk about this one in chapter 4 as the major determinant of exchange rate. Right? So let's get this one here. The absolute form, I mean the model, PPP model, purchasing power parity model, that is shown in 2 forms. One is the absolute complete form, the other one is the relative form, right? So absolute form is this. Given the current exchange rate, the next year's exchange rate depends on the countries in the inflation. I told you the foreign currency with high inflation would depreciate, meaning here, if the foreign inflation, IF, is high, then the exchange rate for that country should go down, okay? Go down, depreciate. If this one, the inflation in the foreign currency, that country, if that is low, then this one would be higher. So in the next period would appreciate. So that is the first story. The first story that is summarized in this model, this the complete form model, absolute form model, right? So the E1 over E0 is 1 plus inflation US over 1 plus inflation foreign country. Now, to change this absolute form, this complete form to relative form, you just simply subtract 1 from both sides. So from 1, and then this one should be this one here. So E1 minus E0 over E0, that's the percentage change in exchange rate, right? And the right-hand side, if you subtract 1, is then you will have the I US minus IF over 1 plus IF. Now this one is the form, but if you look at the IF is like 2% or 3%, 0.03 is a very low. So this one is approximately equal to this one. So the relative form is the E, that the percentage change in exchange rate is equal to, is close to the I/US minus IF. That's a relative inflation or inflation differential. That's the relative form of, no, this is PPP. Erase this moment. This is PPP. This one is also PPP. Okay, let me change that. All right. So we know what the purchasing power parity means, and we know the model. One is absolute model, and one is relative model. We need both. You know, depending on the questions, we can use either form. Now, let's apply that to the actual question. Assume that the spot rate of Mexican peso is 10 cents today. The US inflation this year is expected to be 7%, and then the Mexican inflation is expected to be 4%, 7 and 4%. What is your expected future spot rate of the Mexican peso in 1 year based on their PPP? All right. Then, we want to calculate, in this case, the question is about expected future spot rate, then E1 at E1. So we have to use this one here, right? We have to use this one. So complete form. So this is the way. E1 is equal to E0 times, what do we have? 1 plus I US divided by 1 plus IF. See, we use this form. This form. All right. So you know, this one is E0 is 0.10 times 1 plus I US, that's 7%. 1 plus 7% divided by 1 plus Mexican, the inflation 4%. That's it. You see that? So Mexican inflation is lower than US inflation. That means the expected future spot rate E1 of the Mexican peso should appreciate. So let's see how it goes. So here, look at this one. So the today's exchange rate for Mexican peso was 10 cents per Mexican peso. Now, because of this, you know, lower the relative inflation, it is expected to appreciate in the next period. So that you see it, right? 0.1029 the dollar per Mexican peso that is appreciated out. Okay, it's easy, right? Okay. Now, if I ask you here, now look at this. If I ask you, given the U.S. inflation is 7%, Mexican inflation is 4%, 4% there. Right, Mexican inflation is 4%. Then, if the question is, how much? If the question is, how much the Mexican peso will appreciate? How much or what percentage? What percentage? then if that is the question, then you have to use this relative form. Now, US is 7%, and Mexican the inflation is 4%. So 7 minus 4 is 3%, right? 3%. So you could say Mexican peso is expected to appreciate by 3%. No, by 7 minus 4%. 7 minus 4%. 3%. All right. That is based on the relative form, right? Relative form. So if you don't have to show like the spot rate, the level of spot rate, this is good enough. This is good enough. So, you know, Mexican peso, given this relative inflation, 7 minus 4, 3%. Mexican peso is expected to appreciate by 3% in the next period. Right? That's good. But if you actually calculate this one, the slight rounding error, 0.10 times 1 plus 0.03%, you will get 0.103. That's very close to this one here, right? I think that's good enough. Okay. All right, that's right, but still very close. I mean, because this one is approximation, but very close approximation. Okay, right. If we show this relative form, the purchasing power parity graphically, I mean, the purchasing power parity is the percentage change in exchange rate is equal to relative inflation. There. Let's put relative inflation on y-axis and the percentage change in the currency spot rate on x-axis when there is equal to. I mean, this purchasing power parity, that means these two should be equal. So the 45-degree line, this line is the line where the percentage change in exchange rate is equal to relative inflation. That's called purchasing power parity. So we call this line purchasing PPP line. So PPP line is 45-degree and line, and is the percentage change in exchange rate is equal to inflation differential. Okay, now let's think about the C. Purchase power parity disparity. Point above purchasing power parity PPP line, like point C, get this. The relative inflation is 4%. Do you see that? And then the percentage change in spot rate is 1% there. This is exactly like PPP disparity, purchasing power disparity. Now, in this case, if it is in disparity, this in equilibrium, then your relative inflation is much higher than percentage change in exchange rate. Then what happens is the foreign exchange rate, foreign currency value, foreign exchange rate, that will adjust itself toward this equilibrium condition. For example, here, C, if it is C, as you see, this is a disparity, right, in equilibrium. So the flexible exchange rate will move itself toward the equilibrium. So as exchange rate increases, I mean, it should move this way. This one should move this way toward purchasing power parity line. So how does that happen? This one means the percentage change in exchange rate will increase. So the the exchange rate should appreciate and move the whole thing toward purchasing power parity line. And then it will continue to move. It will continue to appreciate until it hits purchasing power parity line. That's the adjustment process by exchange rate. Okay. Now, what about the D? That is the below purchasing power parity line there. If you look at that one, the relative inflation is -3, but the percentage change in exchange rate is -2. So in this case, E is greater than relative inflation. So this is again purchasing power disparity. Right? So if it is in equilibrium, it should adjust itself to the purchasing power parity. So this exchange rate will depreciate. Exchange rate will depreciate, will continue to depreciate until you hit this one, hits this purchasing power parity. That way, the exchange rate, flexible exchange rate will adjust itself and move toward the purchasing power parity condition. Okay, you got it? All right, that was one. That was purchasing power parity. Second, Fisher effect. Fisher effect. I think you heard about this in an economic class. So basically, what we know is that nominal interest rate that include two components. One is expected inflation plus real interest rate. Okay. So so expected inflation, and then real interest are supposed to be equalized across different countries. Real interest rate, real interest rate or real rate of return. This one is the real measure for investment performance there. So when you evaluate two different investment alternatives, what you do is that you look at real interest income or real rate of return. Now, in an equilibrium condition, real interest rates are equal across different countries. Otherwise, arbitrageurs, they will move their capital to higher real interest or higher real interest income to exploit that higher income, right? So arbitrageurs will act to exploit this, the higher real interest income. So these arbitrageurs will drive those real interest rates to parity. They will continue to move their capital until this real interest are equalized. That makes sense? Okay, that's what's happening in international finance. All right. So again, this Fisher effect has two different forms: absolute or complete form or relative form. Yeah. All right. Two different form of absolute form is, now let's start with this one here. If you look at the second one, what is that? I is nominal interest rate divided by 1 plus I, that's big I, that's inflation, right? So what is that called? It is 1 plus I nominal divided by 1 plus I, the inflation. That is exactly nominal, real interest rate. And that, you have to subtract 1, that's the real interest rate. But this is the real interest rate. 1 plus I nominal adjusted for inflation. That's meaning a real interest rate, right? Real interest. So this is real interest. So US and F. Then if you put the nominal interest and the inflation in the same direction, same side, then you will get this form. All right, this form and this form is the same thing. Okay. All right. If you look at the relative form, if you the same thing, minus one from both sides, then you end up with this is relative inflation, right? Relative interest rate. This is relative inflation. So they are equal. They are approximately equal. That is one form, right? This one form. Have any question? Okay. This one is relative interest rate. This is relative inflation. There should be equalized. They are equal. And the next form is, if you subtract one from both sides, what do you end up with? If you do the same thing, approximately IUS minus big IUS is equal to IF minus big IF inflation. So what is this one here? This one is, that is like practitioner's version or approximate version of real interest rate. Nominal minus inflation, that's the real interest rate, right? That's US. Nominal minus inflation, that's the for foreign country, foreign real interest, right? Again, this one are supposed in theory, or in the equilibrium condition, this real interest are equalized across different countries. Otherwise, the arbitrageurs, they will drive this the real interest rate to equilibrium, to parity. All right. Here, let's apply this model to some question. Assume that interest rate on 1 year insured US country bank deposit is 6%. US interest rate is 6%. And UK interest rate is 7%, right? 7%. Now inflation in this is expected to 5% US and 4% UK. All right, then what type of cash flows can we expect based on the Fisher effect? Let's calculate real interest rate in US. Real interest rate. So interest rate is 6% minus inflation 5%. That's the 1% real interest. And UK real interest is 7% minus 4%, 3%. What do you see there? The UK real interest is quite higher than US real interest. So arbitrageurs, investors, when they see this, the disparity in terms of Fisher effect, then they will act immediately. So what they will do is US investors, arbitrageurs, move their capital to UK because UK real interest rate is much higher. Will move their capital to UK to exploit higher UK real interest. And this one will continue until they are equal. Okay. Which will continue, let me write. Continue till they are equalized. That's the one. Right? So if you get this one here, if you show this Fisher effect graphically, now let's put the relative interest in y-axis, relative inflation x-axis, and 45-degree, they are the equal. These two are equal. That's a Fisher effect line, FE line. So if you look at the C, country C, this one, C, the real interest, I mean, the interest differential is higher, okay, and also, okay, so this one is higher than this one, or here, this one, relative interest is higher than in the relative inflation. That means is equivalently. Now, US, if you move this one this way and move this one the other way, then US real interest is higher than foreign real interest. So what happens? Arbitrageurs, they will move their capital from foreign country into US until the above are equalized. All right, that's what happens based on the Fisher effect. So when they do that, this one will adjust toward this way. Or if like interest rate and inflation, they change together, they might go this way too. Okay, if they change, right? And this way, right? Depending on how much the interest rate or inflation change. Now, D is the opposite, right? So D shows this one. US the real interest rate is less than foreign real interest rate. So foreign real interest rate is greater than US real interest rate. So we expect capital flows from US into foreign country until those two are equal. Okay, until we get to Fisher effect equilibrium. So this one will approach this way, right? There was Fisher effect. Okay, international Fisher effect. International Fisher effect that combines Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. All right, now look at this. Purchasing power parity, it shows the percentage, E1 over E0 is equal to 1 plus I US over 1 plus I F. Now, this is inflation, totally inflation, right? If you look at Fisher effect, 1 plus I US over 1 plus I US, a second, yes, IF, 1 plus, so IUS, okay, relative there, here, okay. That's right, this one here, that was on purchasing power parity, this right hand side, purchasing power parity. So, but this one is equal to this one here. So, if you combine purchasing power parity, this one, and then this Fisher effect, then we end up with this. Look at this. E1 over E0 is equal to 1 plus I US, 1 plus I F. There. But this one, we arrived this one through 1 plus I inflation US over 1 plus I inflation F, which is equal to this one by Fisher effect. So if you explain international Fisher effect, you need the Fisher effect and purchasing power parity, because this one is a combination of Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. That's why I included Fisher effect there. Without it, there's a gap there, right? This the Fisher effect that bridges between purchasing power parity and international Fisher effect. So this is the complete form of international Fisher effect, right? If you change this one to relative form, subtract 1 from both sides, then you end up with the percentage change in exchange rate is equal to interest rate differential. In PPP, it was inflation differential or relative inflation. But this time, since we go through per PPP and Fisher effect, we end up with relative interest or interest differential. That is the relative form of the international Fisher effect. International, wait a second, Fisher effect. This one also international Fisher effect. Fisher effect. All right. Do we have Fisher effect too? Yeah. Oh my goodness. This one should be Fisher effect. This one should be Fisher effect. All right. Okay. That was the international Fisher effect. Okay. So let's apply this one. Oops. This one to answer questions. Okay. Assume the interest rate on 1 year, the insured home country, US bank, deposit is 5%, and the interest rate on 1 year insured foreign bank deposit is 6%. All right, 6%. For the actual return of these two investments is similar from the perspective of investors in home country. The foreign currency would have to change over the investment horizon by the following percentage. Okay, look at this. Since we are not given the exchange rate, so we have to use the relative form, right? You know, let's look at this US, I don't know, small I, US minus IF. Yeah, let's see. That one is what? US 5% and 6% is equal to minus 1%, right? Minus 1%. So relative in the interest rate is minus 1%. Then E should be what? E should be, based on this international Fisher effect, it should be minus 1% too. Minus 1% too. What does that mean? E means percentage change in the exchange rate. So to get the minus 1%, the exchange rate should depreciate over time, over the next year, next period. By how much? By 1%. Depreciate by 1%. Like this, you have minus 1% percentage change in exchange rate. Straightforward, right? Straightforward. So, okay. If you show this, international Fisher effect graphically, again, you put the relative inflation on y-axis, and the percentage change in the currency, the spot rate, exchange rate, is on x-axis there. So there's an international Fisher effect line there, right? And then purchasing, this is no inflation. Inflation, I mean, interest rate disparity. International Fisher effect disparity, you get this one. F and E are on IFE line, so they are in equilibrium, in parity, right? But J, H is outside this side, right? So this relative interest is higher than the percentage change in exchange rates. Look at this. Relative interest is 2%. Relative interest is 2%. And then the percentage change in exchange rate is minus 2%. It's way above, right? So this is in equilibrium, disparity. So in this case, in this in equilibrium condition, what happens is the exchange rate, again, exchange rate, the flexible exchange rate is supposed to appreciate, will continue to appreciate to reach 2% next year, during next year. During next year, okay? That is what you expect to happen. Happen to exchange rate. So E, big E, exchange rate, it will continue to appreciate to reach 2% the appreciation in the next period. So that means this one will continue to appreciate until it hits F, probably, right? F. If, in the way, that's the kind of the adjustment. If interest rate or inflation might change during the way, it probably not that much. It could, like, it might not straight line. It could this way or this way, right? It could, until it hits the IFE line. All right. Now let's look at G there. G. In this case, the relative inflation and the interest rate. This one should be a small one. This one should be I. There's a small I, right? Let's change that. This one is small I, because that's the relative interest rate. So here, relative interest rate is -3, and then if the percentage change in foreign currency is 2%. This one is way, this one is way over this the relative inflation. So in this case, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is this time is depreciate. Will continue to depreciate here. This one is way above compared to relative interest rate. So exchange rate will go back or move this way, and it is supposed to depreciate to reach not, no, it's not 2%, it's a -3%, right? -3%, okay, here, -3%, because this is -3. So during the next period. But, if interest rates in these two countries might change a little bit, then this one might not go straight, it go this way or this way. So until it hits this IFE line, right? So like F, if you look at F, the relative inflation is 2%. Relative interest, I, US minus IF is 2%, and E, small e, that's 2%. So that's equilibrium there, right? F shows this way. F shows this way, right? But this one is big disequilibrium or disparity. All right. So the exchange rate will change itself, adjust itself toward that equilibrium condition or parity. That's what's going to happen. Now, some tricky point is this. As I said, international Fisher effect that combine Fisher effect and purchasing power parity. Now, it shows here, if you look at this one, if foreign country, for example, UK, if UK interest rate is higher, then next period UK pound is supposed to depreciate. That's what the model says. So if UK interest rate is high, then the E1, the next UK exchange rate is supposed to go lower. Now, that's what the international Fisher effect says. But this is theoretical, it's theory, international Fisher effect, contradict how a country with high interest rate can attract more capital flows and then cause the local currency to strengthen. I mean, this happens, right? This happens. And also, that's one thing. And also contradict how central bank may purposely try to raise interest rate in order to attract fund and strengthen the currency of their local currency. You know, this one like is the opposite to what this international Fisher effect says, right? Okay. Now, so this contradiction, my answer to this contradiction is this. Whether the IFE hold in reality is dependent on the currencies involved and the period assessed. Here, this happens, when a country with high interest rate usually attract more capital from foreign countries, and therefore the currency value to appreciate. That happens. And also central bank, they purposely try to raise their interest rate to attract fund and strengthen the value of their local currency. That happens. However, this happens in the short run. Like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months, something like that. Okay, that's one. And also, that's one thing. And second, this one is what? Kind of the second one, especially the second one. Central bank may purposely try to raise capital. Is like the artificial, intentional action. Intentional action, not the market equilibrium or not market forces. This is the proposed or intentional action. So that is not explained by international Fisher effect. International Fisher effect, the key aspect of international Fisher effect is this is for a long run market autonomous adjustment, not artificial, not intended adjustment or behavior. So this is long run market adjustment behavior. Long run, we are talking about more than 1 year, 2 years, something like that, 3 years, all right? And furthermore, so in the long horizon, this adjustment is go through purchasing power parity and Fisher effect, right? So if, for example here, if relative interest rate is high, first you have to go through purchasing power parity. I mean the Fisher effect. If relative inflation is high, then this one is high. That means if this one is relative interest rate is high, then relative interest is high, then that's Fisher effect lead to the adjustment that relative inflation is high in the long run. This one goes up, then this one goes up too. Then you have to go back to the purchasing power parity. If this one goes high, this one goes high. If this one goes high, then it will, I mean, the exchange rate will appreciate because this one goes high. All right? So that way, the international Fisher effect that explains that way. If this one is higher, then this one is higher. All right? Okay. So, but that is contradict to this one here. In the short run, or artificial like behavior, action, that's might contribute with that. If this one is high, that means the UK interest rate is low. If UK interest rate is low, then the whole thing is high, and it's a high. So that's a tricky part. But again, what the fact that this IFE contradicts these two aspects means it is about the short run. This contradiction that happens in the short run, and then it is the artificial, intentional action, not the market's autonomous adjustment, behavior, adjustment process. The market's long-run adjustment behavior that happens in this way, international Fisher effect way. All right. Okay. The next one is interest rate parity. We did this one in chapter 7. So now, given this information, what happened is, if you invest $1 million or $1 in US, then US interest rate is 4.30, 4.30. Yeah, 4.30. So that's change that one to 0.30. Yeah. If US interest rate is 4.30, if you invest there, you will end up 1.0430. Now let's like derive the outcome in UK. If you move $1 to UK, the first thing is you have changed that to UK pound by using a spot rate. So you get 0.5892 pound. And then interest rate for UK is 5.99%. You invest it at 5.99% for 1 year, then you will end up with this. So, all right. And this one is for sure certain outcome, but this one is your British pound. This one is the US dollar in 1 year. You cannot compare this two. So this one is uncertain, right? Uncertain. Unless you take some action. Unless you take like hedging action. Here, to make this uncertain to certain, what you do is you get into forward contract using based on this 1 year forward contract rate, forward rate. So if you hedge this future 1 year, the British pound through a forward contract, then that will become 1.67, that's forward rate. That will become this amount of US dollar, right? This amount of US dollar. Now, if you compare these two, what do you see? US outcome, UK outcome is identical. It's the same thing. So in this case, we say, you remember that? Covered interest arbitrage profit is equal to 0, or 0 covered interest arbitrage profit. Remember that, right? Right, okay. So if I rewrite the whole thing using this symbol, then 1 plus I US, this one is here this way, F over E, 1 plus I US. That's exactly what I did here. Now, if we use this one, we can derive the condition for interest rate parity. It's called interest parity. When these two are equal, we say 0, the covered interest arbitrage profit, or this is the interest rate parity. So this is US outcome. And And this is UK outcome there. This is US outcome, and UK outcome is this one there. If they are equal, you know, same thing. If you move this one this way, if they are equal, we say, you know, that is the exactly interest rate parity, IRP. Okay. Now, if we change this absolute form to relative form, just, you know, subtract 1 from both sides. I start with this one here, right? Then you end up with this way. So left-hand side, IUS minus IUK over 1 plus IUK. That's this one. And then this one is F minus E over E. Now, this one approximate the practitioner's version is this one. This is approximate. So probably this one should be like this approximate. So this the relative interest rate, or the interest rate differential is equal to this one, F minus the forward minus spot divided by spot. That is called F is the forward premium or discount. Okay, so relative interest rate is equal to forward premium or discount. Then this one is the relative form of interest rate parity. So if forward premium is equal to interest rate differential, then covered interest arbitrage is 0, and that leads to interest rate parity. That's another equilibrium condition in international finance. So if you show this one graphically, ILP line, if you put the relative interest on y-axis, forward premium, F minus E over E, for premium is this one here. Now, if they are equal, 45-degree line, that's called interest rate parity line, IRP line, okay? And interest rate disparity, look at this one here, Z there. Z, that word is what? Relative interest rate is -1%, but the forward premium is -3%. That's a very disparity, disequilibrium. Yeah. All right. In this case, this one here. This one is much lower than this one. This one is much higher than this one. What does it say? Covered interest arbitrage is in favor of US, of course. Is US, right? So in this case, what happens is this one is -3. This one is -1. This one is -1. This one is -3. So, you know, the flexible exchange rate will change to increase this side. So how would you increase this one? Exchange rate will depreciate or forward rate will increase, either or both. If in this Z, in this case, this one was -3 and this one was -1, right? -1. So this one is -1, this one is -3. Wait, is that? No, the other way. Okay. This one is -3. This one is -1. So what do you see? This one is much lower right now. So it's in equilibrium there. So this one is much higher. This one is much lower. So what movement will increase this portion to -1? Either this forward rate increase or the spot rate decreases, or both, right? Until these two are equalized. So that's what happened. I mean, if you look at this one, I mean, this one is easier too. I mean, oh, right, that's one. This one is minus 3. This one is minus 3. This one is minus 1 there. Okay? Yeah, minus 1 there. So this one will increase. That means Ford premium or discount will increase there by increasing this one or decreasing this one. Okay, and this Y is the opposite there. Okay, the relative interest rate. This one is also relative interest rate is 2%, and the Ford premium is 4%. So, like in this case, exchange has appreciated. The Ford premium is way higher than is like equilibrium condition. So in this case, there, 4.2. So this one is 2%. This one is 4% there. So what happened is this one should go down to 2 to reach that equilibrium condition. So how do you go down? Either the Ford rate goes down or the exchange rate spot rate goes up, or both, until this 2 parity established. All right. So based on this condition, this equilibrium condition, you can get some projection about what's going to happen to exchange rate, spot exchange rate, and Ford exchange rate, Ford rate. Okay, so if you understand, if you get the form and a clear understanding of these parity conditions, then you can use this one. If you are sophisticated investors in the exchange rate, then you can use this condition on your investment decisions, because you can get the reasonable projections of what's going to happen to the exchange rate and the forward rate in the future. Okay. The last one is UFR, is the simple. Forward rate is an unbiased estimator of future spot rate. Get this one. To be correct, this one should be 1. 1 means the future spot rate, right? Future spot rate. That should be like more precise expression there. So forward rate F is an unbiased forecaster, predictor of future spot rate E1. Okay, that's it. Okay, I explained these 5 parity conditions, including purchasing power parity, Fisher effect, and international Fisher effect, and interest rate parity, and unbiased estimator, forward rate as an unbiased estimator of future spot rate. Now, these 5 are the complete components in the 5 equilibrium or parity condition in international finance. As I said, our textbook just includes PPP, IP, and ILP. But this Fisher effect and UFR, that will make all this discussion complete. And that's my favorite structure and way. Let's put these 5 things together here. Okay. All right. There were the important variable there. E is what? E is that the percentage change in spot rate, right? Spot rate. This F is Ford premium. And big I, inflation, this is relative inflation or inflation in a differential. I, that's a relative interest or interest rate differential. These are major variables in our discussion in here. right? Equilibrium condition. Now we talked about 5 different the equilibrium condition, parity conditions. Now let's combine all those. Which one connect? Which one connect percentage change and inflation, relative inflation? Which one explain this way? That's purchasing power parity. Remember that? Purchasing power parity connect E and relative inflation. What about the E and relative interest rate? Which one explain that one? That's international Fisher effect. Remember that, right? Yeah. Okay. Which one connect the relative inflation and relative interest? That is exactly Fisher effect. Remember Fisher effect. Now, which one connect E and F? E and F. This one is what? This one is, all right, UFR. Remember that? UFR. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, which one is? Interest rate, or is, a second. Yeah, interest rate parity. Now, here, the exchange rate, the forward premium. Exchange rate forward premium, if you go back here, forward premium is this one, right? Forward premium and relative interest rate. So the connecting the forward premium and relative inflation, this two is what? This one is the interest rate parity. You see that? Okay. Everything, this 5 component explains all this interrelated, the relationship there. Now, what about this one here? I mean, there's one missing. There's one missing. So let me do copy and paste there. Now, there should be some like theory that explains this one and this one. We don't. But do you remember the chemistry? I mean, the university chemistry. If you have this like system network in equilibrium, network is in equilibrium. If the whole relationship is in equilibrium, whole relationship, we're talking about 5 relationships are in equilibrium. The remaining one is automatic and implied. You don't have to do that. Do you remember that from chemistry class? So if all the relationship except one are in equilibrium, then the remaining, that one relationship is just implied and automatically implied. So you don't need that. So I can just put this arrow, this relationship, without any explanation for that. All right. This is my version, my complete version of the 5 parity or equilibrium conditions in international finance. You like it? I mean, I like this way. This make this discussion completed there. And the versus the textbook discussion about only PPP, IFE, and your interest rate parity. But again, to make complete the system, we need Fisher effect and unbiased, forward rate as unbiased estimator or forecaster of future spot rate. Okay, now I think that's it, right? That's it. So let me. So you have the quiz and the assignment. Let's do, but you'll find the assignment for this chapter is extended to next Wednesday, next Tuesday or Wednesday. And then your midterm exam that covers like chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, that start in next Wednesday. Right, that's strange, right? Okay, let me stop this one here.